This is CREDO reference, which I want to show you today. I'm going to show you a few different ways of using it, and along the way describe how this material can be used to satisfy your teaching of some of the frames in the ACRL framework for information literacy. I'm in the main page of CREDO right now, and the first thing I want to show you is how to use us as a bookshelf, a shelf of ebooks. And to do that, you will go to here, this hamburger menu, and click on all titles. And here you see a list of all the titles that are within your subscription. You can look among them in different ways. There are collections here. Just depending on what collection your library has subscribed to, you might have one or more of these. Then there are subjects, the subjects of the books within your subscription. You see the publishers of them as well. And then there's a search box where you can do a title contains search to be more specific. Today, I'm just going to use subjects here and go to food and nutrition. Food, drink, and nutrition. Here we go. And I'm going to choose a book within here to that I can use to talk about the ACRL framework. Before I do that, I want to show you that anytime on any page within CREDO reference, you can get a page link here. So for example, if you wanted to place this page of food, drink, and nutrition books in an online curriculum, or push it at students within the LMS, or send it to a student during track reference or what have you, you can use the link here, and that will bring them right to this page once they're authenticated into CREDO reference. And you can do that on any page. So just depending on what you have on the screen, you can get the link here and it will bring students right to that spot. So today I wanted to show you this book here, just as an example of using the framework within CREDO, Cambridge World History of Food. I'm going to jump around a little bit within the framework, just depending on what I have on the screen here. So first of all, I want to talk about the frame, information has value. And I think that when you're talking about this with students in relation to databases, it would be good to emphasize, first of all, that this material is not free to the library. It's only free to the students. I don't think students always understand what databases are, first of all, where they come from and how the library makes them available. So it's worth describing to students that this is material that the library has to subscribe to for them, and it is paid for. And ultimately it's paid for by them through their tuition, at least partly. I always think that students will hopefully be more likely to use material if they know that they're, ultimately the fee for it is coming out of their pocket, whether they use it or not. So they might as well use it and get their money's worth. So information does have value. The databases are not free. And as they know, there is free material available on the web. So why would anyone subscribe to this? And the reason, as you know, but I'm talking about what you can say to students, is this is vetted information. It comes from books, published books out there in the world that are collected into this online collection. And those books take money to write and produce. And it costs the library money to subscribe to them. And everyone is willing to pay those. Why anyone would be willing to pay those fees is that the material here is vetted. It's checked by the authors and the editors of the book, and then by yourselves when you are deciding whether to subscribe to this or not. You will want to have a look within here and see what's included, whether it's suitable for library use, and is worth the money. So that is why, what's free is not only what the library will rely on. Recognizing that information has value, you are willing to purchase, subscribe to these materials for the students. So yeah, just the existence of paid databases at all that people are willing to subscribe to, I think, is a good illustration for students of why information has value. And then you could go further and talk to students about the value to them as a student of this information. It's, in the long term, we hope that their life will be in their career and their personal life will be enriched by being more educated. And using vetted information from publishers is one way of achieving that. In the short term, they can satisfy their school, their class or their professor's curriculum requests by using these vetted quality materials in their paper rather than just relying only on material from the open web. And of course, the CREDO reference is reference materials, so you could compare it to Wikipedia with them. They're all familiar with Wikipedia, and this is something similar, only the library subscribes to it as a more reliable option. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. There's also value in this for authors. So authors of this material, first of all, can receive money. Some of these are publications that people are paid to write, but you could also get into the scholarly publishing ecosystem where professors, even professors at your institution that they know, may write for these kind of publications for free because it helps with career advancement, especially tenure. So there is value to the authors as well of completing this kind of material. You could also discuss what peer review is, another aspect of the scholarly system where workers there are not paid, but there is value to them in participating in that work because it can advance their academic careers. I'm sure students will be surprised to know many of these things are not paid, even though it costs the library or the students money to get them. Some of the work is free on the writer's end or on the editor's end. Then you could talk about the value to the publisher. Whoever, these kind of books are edited books where, like the Cambridge Encyclopedia that I'm looking at here now, it's edited in the sense that there's one editor of the book who will be the person to gather the various experts out there on food and get their opinions and writing into this book. So publishers recognize that gathering experts together is a profitable and a sound idea because they're able to get some expertise in one place on one topic and sell that because information does have value to them as an organization. And in the information has value frame from ACRL, one of the knowledge practices they describe in there is why some individuals or groups of individuals may be underrepresented or systematically marginalized. And I think that this is why I chose the food option. I think it can be a good illustration to students of who gets a voice and who doesn't. I forgot to say when I was talking previously about the authors and that kind of thing, you can always look in here and show students who the contributors are so that they'll be able to see the value that accrues in this book by having contributors who are experts in various areas of the food world. Okay, so on the idea that some people have marginalized people are not always given a voice or have, at least much more difficulty in getting into this kind of world than others. And that affects what students will see in a database or in other academic publications. Certain voices are absent. And I chose food because I think who is allowed to talk about foodways and the culture of food and the history of food it definitely affects what students will see in books, first of all. But it's also just, to me, a good illustration of racism and economic disparity at work in our scholarly ecosystem. So I'm not only talking about this book particularly, but in general, the history of our of academic output has meant that the people who cook and eat foods that are not traditionally white European foods have been relegated to the margins. So there might be someone talking about the production of food in a given culture or in a given country, and they're not from that culture. So if I were teaching that class, this class, I would have a look in here or in some other book about food, or maybe costumes, some book about items in world culture, and show the students how those who have a voice are it's not necessarily an own voices coverage where someone who is actually a cook of the food, or at least comes from the culture where the food would be eaten, they are not necessarily who is in here talking about it. And I think an interesting contrast is the show that's on Netflix now, or one of Hulu, or one of those services that is called High on the Hog. And it's about African-American food, Black food. And it is an own voices presentation. It shows Black cooks and chefs and recipe writers and all that, who are actually familiar with the food from an inside perspective. And that to me contrasts in a positive way for the show rather than with traditional academia, because you might have people who don't eat the food or certainly aren't from the culture that produced that, the recipes or the traditions, and they would be critiquing it from an outside perspective, not as useful. So marginalized voices can definitely, the idea that there are marginalized voices and how that affects what students see and who they know as producers of information, it's definitely apparent in our academic world, sadly. And you could also use this to compare to food writing in the past. So the Cambridge World History of Food is a recent book, whereas you might have access to online or in your library something older, and you could be able to show in there the difference between food writing in the past and today, to show how marginalized voices are creeping in more happily, and even which food is covered, regardless of who the coverage is by. In the past, in older recipe books and histories of food, you might have seen only European food or white American food, whereas today there's much more of a wider view of what food is out there and who chefs are and all that kind of thing. You can even get into, in a bit more of an ambitious ACRL framework class, you could get into the critique of food, who is allowed or successful at being a restaurant reviewer, or who writes for food magazines. I think there was a recent scandal about who is allowed to write and make videos at Bon Appetit magazine or Gourmet, one of those. Anyway, I'm digressing, but I think there's a lot of fertile ground to look at in terms of the ACRL framework if you look at the history of food writing. Interesting topic to me. Let me see what else I had here for you. I'm hardly showing you CREDO, sorry, I've been talking about food so much. But some of the items I want to show you in here are, I mentioned before that you can see the list of contributors. And in terms of talking to students about the framework, scholarship as conversation, in here I would, not just necessarily in this book, but within the books in CREDO reference, I would have a look for footnotes and the notes section in the back of the book to show students how writers lean on other writers, and it's all a conversation, and that down the road, this book will become something that's cited and will further the conversation still more. If there is, I'm not sure if there's a notes section in this book particularly, let me just scroll through. No, but there is sources consulted. So you could always show this to students too, that there is a scholarly conversation. Conversation doesn't necessarily mean, they may not know what conversation means in this context. It doesn't mean actually speaking to someone verbally. You could explain to them. It can mean leaning on others' works to create a conversation in the field. And in this case, here are the works that these writers used to create this book. Okay, let me move back out of here. What did I want to show you? Oh, yes. So let me show you our mind map next. I will do a search for Michelangelo. So here is, we're not in one particular book now like we were with the food. This is how you can do a search, just like sort of a Google search, and type anything in the box here. And these are the results. And they come from books. It's just that it's not one particular book. So first of all, what we have here in the search results is a summary of information about the topic. And it's handpicked to be the best summary of the topic that is within CREDO. Then scrolling down, what else we have here are articles from within our books. And you can see here that they're from these different titles: the Classical Tradition, Phillips Encyclopedia, and so on. And one of the ACRL frames is information creation as a process. And part of that frame is the discussion of how information can be presented in different formats. So here on this page, this is where you can show students that there are different formats in here. You might find dictionary entries, handbooks, regular encyclopedias, that kind of thing. You can see there, and just go through with students what these different types of things are, and talk to them about which kind of formats you might need for different purposes. Like in the beginning of your research, a dictionary entry might be handy. You don't know, you might have an idea for a topic in your mind, but you're not sure exactly what it means. You could use the dictionary entry there. They can use the prompts that I saw here when I was typing. They can use our prompts here to disambiguate between different people with the same name. Part of the ACRL framework is that research is iterative. And that you have to go back and forth. So they might, you could illustrate to them a bad search where they're looking for Michelangelo himself as an artist, but they mistakenly find information on, I don't know, the city called Michelangelo in Italy. I'm making that up, but you can show them the iterativeness of research by doing a search in that way, and showing them how sometimes you have to go back because you didn't get enough information, or what you got was wrong. You chose the wrong Michelangelo, or what have you. Over here as well, we have another way to show them that research is iterative. In this sidebar, there's the mind map, which I'll show you in a second. And then further down, we have these links to more library resources. So this is where you can you would contact us if you want to do this, if you haven't already. You can have us add links to your other library databases in this right-hand sidebar in the search results. Because research is iterative, the beginning part will be using something like CREDO reference to get general background on your topic. And then you will go and find more specific information, not just background information, but more in-depth material over here in this more library resources area. So here, this is just a dummy account, but you could have whatever databases you want set up here that your students can go to next after they get their background information. And because research is iterative, they might use one of these databases that are not by us to find out more about their topic, and then decide, oh, well, what I found out made me realize that this is not the topic I chose initially, is not quite right. And I want to go back and refine it and find out other information about this different aspect. And then they'll go back to the reference materials here and find out information about their new topic or the new aspect of the topic that they're researching. So let me show you our mind map here. We're still on Michelangelo. So this mind map is a visual representation of all the most common search terms related to him within CREDO. So here's your search term in the middle. And then branching off it are these ideas that CREDO, our algorithm believes are the most, will be the most relevant to this search based on their frequency, the term's frequency within the database. And you can click on those. So let's say you want to, you realize that you're interested in Leonardo da Vinci. You can click, you can click on his name and get a map related to that person, or whoever it might be, or whatever topic it might be. They will now appear in the middle, and you get a map with topics relating to them instead around here. You can enlarge this as well. And when you do enlarge it, you have the option to click on any of the topics in the map and get a related map. Here we are. So here's two maps combined. Here's the Leonardo da Vinci one, and here's the other one I clicked on, Michelangelo. And you can see the connections between those two men now using this sort of spokes on a wheel or web or whatever you might call it. Since research is iterative, I keep mentioning, you can always go back as well. So if you go back, you'll be able to retrace your steps and change your mind or add to your information by looking at the previous map, or leaving the map altogether and going back to the books, what have you. It's just useful to mention to students that the steps in here don't have to be always forward moving. You can go back if you decide that your research wasn't right for some reason, or you want more information, and then move from there. I just wanted to show you one more thing that I forgot. In this library resources area, I mentioned that we have other databases here, and you can either have them displayed this way where it shows actual results from them, or we have the option to just list them at the bottom as well, or instead. Sometimes libraries don't want the search to appear for whatever reason. They just want the resource to be listed, and we can do that for you. And so that is it. Again, I am sorry that last week I wasn't able to join you on the phone. I know that Lisa gave you lots of helpful information. Thank you, Lisa. And I hope you got something from today as well. Oh, I should digress a second. You can also use the image search in here while you do the information has value portion of the ACRL, because we have images that are able to be used in there for free, whereas because information has value, students shouldn't just use any images that they find, but they can use these ones. So sorry, now I'm really finished, but please do get in touch at any point if you would like to discuss further how to use this in your work with the ACRL framework or your work generally. And my email address, I'll type it in the search box here. It's my name is Henrietta Verma, and I'm hverma@infobase.com. Please get in touch at any time. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Bye.